Kongres Współpracy Transgranicznej Lublin 2022. Bezpieczeństwo i solidarność. Coroczne spotkanie praktyków współpracy transgranicznej z Unii Europejskiej i Partnerstwa Wschodniego. 3 dni paneli, spotkań i debat liderów samorządowych, organizacji pozarządowych i ekspertów z całej Europy. Forum partnerów. Giełda grantodawców. Wizyty studyjne, warsztaty, koncerty i spektakle. Na żywo i online. Lublin, 5-7 października 2022. Zarejestruj się bezpłatnie na stronie kongres.lublin.eu.
Szanowni Państwo, zaczynamy giełdę grantodawców, a będziemy mówili o programie Interreg Next Polska-Ukraina.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about Interreg Next Poland-Ukraine, which is grants fair. Mr. Bielański from the Technical Secretariat of the program will chair this part of the meeting. After that, we'll have a discussion. Please keep the time limits because we are already delayed. And 4:15 we'll follow up with a panel discussion. Stanisław, go ahead. The floor is yours. Thanks. Good afternoon. Again, on behalf of the Technical Secretariat, let me welcome everyone to Poland-Ukraine. Interreg Next Poland-Ukraine program is another time we meet here, I believe, in shared interest to encourage you to join this cross-border cooperation under the program. Again, we met here last year in a different context. I was talking about the program in its old dimension with Belarus as one of the partners. The situation has changed. This is clear. And as we heard from the panelists, we are about to start a bilateral program, Poland and Ukraine.
Chciałbym Państwu przedstawić takie podstawowe informacje.
I'd like to share some elementary information about the program, not necessarily technical information. I believe once we start inviting projects, then we will have more technical information and training sessions tailored to the project needs. But I believe during the panel you were given a certain ideological context, strategic context. Now I'd like to fill this with specific facts about the new program and its possible reach and dimension.
Po tej giełdzie grantodawców forum.
And after that, after grants fair during the forum of partners, you, I do hope, will fill it with specific content that we will see materializing later on when we invite your applications. So we'll cover the area, the dimension of the program. We'll talk about the budget. We'll talk about the thematic scope, including the division of allocations. I'll give you perhaps more details than last year. Some things have changed on the way. Then we'll talk about the types of projects, certain attributes of the projects, when we invite first applications, and what is also very relevant at this stage, when we have relatively a lot of time before you start preparing your projects, this is the time to start building reliable, good quality partnerships, because this will later on translate into the quality of projects. So you should start thinking about the content and quality of your projects, so later on we'll be able to adjust to what the program expects. So let's move on. The area of the program in geographical terms is what was before, except for Belarus. On the Polish side, as you can see, the same partners, the same regions, and the same on the Ukrainian side, 6 oblasts in Poland, 3 voivodeships, and 2 districts from the central province of Mazowieckie.
Obszar jest mniejszy, mamy na tym obszarze konsekwentnie 14
So in this area we have 14 million
dotychczas.
inhabitants, not 21 as it was before. The program budget, the total budget is 187.4 million euro for projects. It's just a start. This division, of course, will change as we move on, I believe, to the benefit of the program, but this is what we start with.
Już przeznaczone na
This
finansowanie.
has been already allocated to projects. We have 2 sources of funding,
Fundusz Rozwoju Regionalnego
European Regional Development Fund and the instrument that previously was the European Neighbourhood Instrument. Now this is going to be called Neighbourhood Development and International Cooperation Instrument.
Tu wkraczamy już w konkrety na
Let's have a look at the themes in the new program. In other words, what priorities there are that need to be addressed. First,
tym wyjścia dla jego
the
konstrukcji.
starting point for designing this thematic scope was assessment of actual needs of the program. Of course, combined with what the European Commission expects from each Interreg program, because our program,
Więc
Interreg,
te dwie
is this kind of concept. So the thematic scope reflects
jakby starań dopracowania tego
these 2 goals. I mean,
potrzeby regionu,
to meet specific needs of regions,
kwestie środowiskowe,
in
czy
particular environmental issues.
po prostu
This is what the Commission expects. I mean, some substantial part of the budget to be allocated to climate change and environmental issues.
mamy zdrowie, tak jak mieliśmy
We have the health component, we have tourism. So 3 priorities
środków,
that will be allocated the biggest amount of money. You can see the allocations on the slide. This is part of the EU funding. On top of this, there is also the funding from beneficiaries. So here we're talking about the EU funds. And finally, the theme of cooperation and the priority of border. That priority, I think, was not there.
co do tego, ale on w każdym bądź razie jest i
At least it is here today and it is relevant. Let's move through these priorities and objectives, because each of these priorities goes with
ma tylko jeden cel, ale każdy zawiera szereg
an objective or several objectives and specific measures that I believe now are relevant for you to hear, so that you know right from the start how you should get ready
zrealizować.
before you apply and what you would like to implement in your place and what the program will offer to make it happen. So first, environment.
Mu priorytet, który ma
This is a
bardzo
very important priority with 3 specific objectives. Objective 1,
zmian,
to support adaptation to climate change.
przeciwdziałanie skutkom
This is to prevent the effects of
pożarów.
climate change, natural disasters, floods, fires. The other activity
Takie sprawy jak wszelkiego rodzaju zagrożenia związane z działalnością człowieka i
The other component here is the effects of human activities and negative outcomes of human activities.
Infrastruktury,
So here what the program will fund is infrastructure, equipment, but also soft projects around this theme. The second specific objective in priority environment
wodnymi.
is water resources. Again, three
Zapewnienie
areas to be addressed. One is access to water, management of water resources, and waste management. So three measures, three focus points to address under this specific objective.
Wreszcie mamy trzeci cel w tym środowisku.
And finally, objective three, specific objective three, it's about biodiversity and protection of biodiversity within the program boundaries. There's also promotion of green infrastructure and
skutków
mitigation of industrialization and similar
będzie
human
dotyczyła
activities.
czy
Part of the effort
już
in this goal will be to recover and protect areas that are already
nacisk na to właśnie, że
under protection or under some forms of protection. So
jakby
the point is to raise the quality, improve the values of already protected areas.
funkcjonalność korytarzy.
Under this objective, there's also promotion of the development of cross-border eco corridors.
Mamy do czynienia z wymiarem transgranicznym.
So this cross-border dimension is
Tutaj mówię
already there, is present in all these objectives and activities. So keep it in mind. And the second aspect of this objective is protection of biological diversity and monitoring of the environment. This is, as regards environment, the first priority.
część
Priority number two is health, and a sizable amount of funds will be allocated to it. For those of you who
programu tego 1420
are part of the current 1420 program and
tutaj nie mamy jakichś zasadniczych różnic.
projects under security,
Przykładowo na
well, this new priority stresses aspects like prophylaxis, access to medicine by seniors, by vulnerable people, to geriatric services, to prevention of, for example,
w priorytecie zdrowia
cardiovascular diseases. And this is more of highlighting certain areas, certain trends that are relevant for the overall strategy of the program.
Państwo widzą, jest to naprawdę szeroko.
But as you can see, we really look broad. There is a huge spectrum of possibilities. As with environment, what is funded here is both infrastructure, investment projects, and soft projects like improvement of competence, development of telemedicine, etc. Priority 3, tourism.
Trochę jest z pewną pochodną z
This one is a derivative
mamy w dziedzictwie
of what we have now in the current program is cultural natural heritage, and it partly overlaps with that spectrum. So this is to stimulate the development of tourism through promoting sites, locations with specific heritage values or natural values. This is also to raise competence of personnel working in the hospitality industry. Next, we have the priority of cooperation, in fact, split into two parts. One is more of a pilot activity,
takie mało, przynajmniej ja mam trochę problem.
and this is
celem. Mało
kind of
konkretnego
debatable because it misses some specific activity of institutions in the area of the program. This is to raise the effectiveness of public administration. So all possible activities
na celu
to
właśnie
improve,
działania
to streamline the operation of public administration, whether this is contacts with residents, different entities within the area of the program, access to information
funkcjonowanie właśnie mieszkańców, podmiotów gospodarczych.
that are expected by entrepreneurs,
Są coś,
individuals, or any institutions that would like to
administracja
start working
to
on the area covered by support, by somehow struggle with administration and administrative obstacles. Well, so of course this is sometimes a national problem
w miarę, ale no tak jak
that
mówię,
cannot be sometimes resolved locally or regionally. But on the other hand, the funds allocated to this objective are not really big, but we will see how it grows and whether this will bring some effects in the coming
to jest
stages of the program. And specific objective two, I believe interesting for some of you, this is to
mikroprojektów.
this is only for micro projects.
Słów więcej, natomiast
I'll tell you a bit more about them in a moment. This objective,
kontaktów międzyludzkich to
it's about people-to-people contacts, trust building. This is fully intended for micro projects, and the idea is,
poprawę
briefly speaking, to improve
integracji między społeczeństwami
integration, people-to-people relationships on both sides of the border. Its thematic structure mirrors, in a sense, other priorities,
miękkich.
at least in the area of soft activities. So we have environment, health, tourism, and each of these priorities have some
Grubszego kalibru, że tak powiem, infrastruktury,
hard projects, infrastructure, investment.
celu, z racji tego, że są to
And
mikroprojekty.
in this objective for micro projects, we do not expect the funding of big projects, rather micro projects with specific themes that will very well be aligned with the hard projects pursued under other priorities.
Jest
So there is education, health, environment. It is complementary.
naturalne. Wreszcie mamy
Last but not least, there's the priority for borders, the security at borders. So, the scope covers any matters related to it, from the promoting or the tourist border crossing to promote, tourism across the border through a growing border crossing infrastructure, supporting the security, the conditions, or the improving security conditions, in the vicinity of border crossing and so on. So this is the thematic scope 5 priorities.
3 rodzaje projektów.
And 3 types of the projects under which you can pursue the 5 priorities. Well, to be honest, there are 2 types. Large infrastructural projects are non-competitive procedures. These cover a dozen% of the program funds, and they relate to the environment, health, tourism,
Projekt infrastrukturalny związany właśnie z granicami, po tym co
and perhaps we'll have large infrastructural the projects for the borders. the priority. I mean, in the current situation, you simply can't help, having a project like that for border security. So,
Programem to
any of you who have had some contact with the program will know what I'm talking about. These are precisely the same type of projects that you have met before with. Regular projects
program, czyli około 100,
where the majority of the budget is allocated over 130 million euro. The threshold is a bit higher now. The lower limit of the grant is 200,000 euros now. The upper limit, most probably 2.5 million euro per grant.
te kwestie jeszcze wymagają
These assumptions are yet to be determined by the programming committee. Once the monitoring committee, which hasn't been established yet, by the way, we don't have the program approval yet. The monitoring committee will decide about these before decision to publish the calls. So these are just initial the assumptions, and we think that the differences versus the final version will not be very high. The term of the projects is the same. The first call in the program for the projects planned for the second and third quarter of next year.
To będzie oczywiście podane
And we will notify you of the specific dates next year.
regularny był
Unlike the previous programming period, the two-stage procedure for concept designs, then selection, pre-selection, and then the full selection. Now it will be just a single stage operated, applications filed exclusively via the platform operated by the managing authority, that is the Ministry of European Funds and Regional Policy. Micro projects, just a slight change for the grant amount from 60,000 to 100,000. The allocation overall is much higher. It's nearly or more than doubled compared to the previous edition. 12 months. This is the project, the period. Simplified the account settlement, the mechanisms provided. So this is, perhaps the most important shift to encourage beneficiaries to use all the fixed rates, lump sums, simplified the cost methods. Anything that can be determined, under the grant agreement, to be settled, within the overall budget approved initially, without getting into details of, specific cost items. So, in my opinion, this will be again a major change for projects, versus the previous edition, previous programming period. Of course, we have some simplified methods for account settlement, but we want to go further to make a next step in that. The calls are not planned to be published next year. Because of the importance of the other priorities, health, borders, and environment, as mentioned in the previous discussion panel. These will be the priorities that will focus on for micro projects. We are planning to publish calls in 2024. And like for the regular projects, these will be operated and published via the same the IT system.
Do aktualnego
The assumptions for implementation, no revolution here. It's exactly the same principles that you have known before. 90% eligible cost level. The advance payments, there will be a change in this respect. Quite a major change. There will be more reporting. The entire reporting system changes. The system for payments by the Commission to specific programs changes as well. These payments will be based on the on costs actually incurred as reported to the Commission. That's why we need to kind of redesign the reporting system itself. Will encourage you to spend more money faster, just to get advance payments as soon as possible. Of course, these are the cross-border projects based on the lead partner principle, partnership agreement and grant agreement with the managing authority.
Jedna sprawa, tak jak było.
One more thing, as it used to be. These are the non-for-profit projects that count.
Co nadmieniałem na początku, czyli
Now, to talk about, what I mentioned, at the outset, what you should think about, when considering future projects, that is key aspects. That will be decisive to this course when the panel will be assessing your projects. Of course, a number of other criteria will be taken into account, but let me just present to you the four key aspects that for sure you should be having at the back of your heads, in your minds when planning your activity. So, value to the program. This is about alignment with the specific objectives in the program, in the priorities in the program. I mentioned these priorities and these activities when I use the word stress or accent. These activities, of course, are not the exhaustive. It's not an exhaustive list, but it's clear manifestation of the direction for action, and the committee will select these projects for funding, which are in line with those activities, these directions. So contribution to the program overall, to meeting the targets, the indicators will be assessed and will count in the selection. The organization will be quite similar as to the indicators themselves. That is, there's programming indicators, that is, program-specific indicators assessed by the European Commission, and a full list of the indicators where the projects will align the scopes to a specific selection. Of course, the projects must somehow address the priorities given. So keep in mind, what indicators in specific objectives you will need to deliver in your projects, because this will impact the structure of your projects.
Wyraźne oddziaływanie na grupy docelowe.
Specific impact on the target groups. That is how your project will be sustainable, will be meaningful for the potential the recipients in whatever priority, whether environment, health, or the borders. There are target groups or subject groups. These will be taken into account when assessing the project. Now, the delivery on horizontal policies and sustainability of your project. That is, whether the impact will end upon the end of the project itself, or perhaps a long-term impact will be ensured, as the program makes clear, is very important. Another aspect in assessing the projects is the consistency. It has always been the case, nothing new for anyone who has ever been involved in programs. Consistency is a criterion for assessment, for evaluation, and this will continue to be so. With some added, specific conditions given the cross-border dimension of the program. So first of all, whether a problem to be addressed by a project or a challenge is actually covered by the activities, objectives, the deliverables, to address, to resolve the problem. So we have a problem, and how the project can contribute to resolving the problem. Or a partnership that you suggest, that you propose, is really well aligned to achieve achieve the objectives, or address the issue. Have you included all the stakeholders, in a certain action area? Or perhaps some institutions or some actors or some partners have been included just for any other reasons, but not for the benefit of the project. I mean, they will have no actual use in the project. We'll pay attention to the structure of the partnership and, representation and share of responsibility of each partners, and, the contribution to the overall delivery. We'll pay more attention to consistency with other initiatives, policies, and actions at different levels of both the local and the regional and national levels in the project area. So whether your application, will kind of, will try to, force an open door open, or perhaps it will be the actual challenge that it will try to address. So you may have an idea for a project, but but you don't have to or mustn't repeat something that has been done before. You need to build on the previous achievements. So a project, simply speaking, must take into account a kind of broad context in an area, in a challenge that is attempting to address. I mean, it must not be developed in separation from the surroundings, from the environment, let's say.
Wreszcie to, co zawsze oceniamy, to
And also the readiness or feasibility of the project. This is something that is always assessed. I mean, whether it's realistic to deliver the project with the resources, with the funding, within the time period prescribed. It's a cross-border program, so cross-border partnerships, and the stress is also higher on the cross-border cooperation. It will be the case in the 2021-2027 perspective. When you think about your projects, about what you want to deliver,
z wieloma rozmowami.
then most often, when we talk to people, when we talk to beneficiaries and you get questions from beneficiaries, so
Szukają bardzo
there is some natural, sequence of things. First, you ask questions, then you identify your objectives, and then you kind of look around for partners, on the other side of the border. So, what we would like to see is, that networking or partnerships or partner cooperation. As the starting point will be given more attention. So we would simply like to kind of reverse your traditional approach. Then something that you would like to address in your projects needs to be important for both sides of on the borders, or perhaps this cross-border cooperation must be indispensable for the project to succeed. Symmetrical efforts or character on both sides of the border will be key. So no longer a focus on one side of the border where the other side's partner is just a symbolic one. And the benefits, the deliverables, the outcomes must be well planned and well designed and visible on both sides of the border. Another point I would like to mention today is the budget. Perhaps it's a bit more of a technicality for your projects. I've been speaking about strategic aspects before, but technicalities also matter. So we'll assess whether the budget is proportional to your plans, whether the costs plan are eligible, whether the entire budget and planned expenditure are in line with the planned impact of the project. I mean, there's a value for money principle that we are going to apply. And, of course, only necessary and eligible the costs should be included in the budget. To wrap up this presentation, let me just tell you briefly about the support as applicants that you may expect from us as applicants. Those who attended the last year's edition of this Congress will know these the points. Let me add this, that we would like to recapitulate on on the track record. We'll show off successful projects or valuable projects, giving you specific reasons why they were so valuable. This most probably it will be tourism and perhaps some aspects of security that we'll be focusing on. It is yet to be determined. On top of this, we are going to open, the database of the outcomes of the past projects on the website of the Poland, Belarus, Ukraine program. The links in all the fields of activity, so that you can build on the kind of past results achieved. We'll organize forums for networking. Today's forum is a mini event like that. Then the training, as always, with the publication of calls. We'll be organizing the training tours in all the regions, oblasts, districts, and so on. Of course, we are available for inquiries, for the contacts at our offices. You may expect that the network of contact points will be more extensive. Marshal offices as usual, this Rzeszów and
Będą pełniły rolę
the Lublin. Now it will be also the Białystok and Siedlce. On the Ukrainian side, this infrastructure will be extended as well. We are now in talks with the Ukrainian party about the final shape of that contact point, the network. Of course, the task will be to provide information on the program in specific centers in the center cities. For the program, so we'll have direct access to knowledgeable people.
programu.
Of course, the program's website, the Facebook profile, where during the recapitulation the meetings that we have organized. Well, after a meeting like that, we would open a Facebook group just addressing the specific topic discussed at the meeting. And we expect that you may be interested in creating projects, in developing projects in this specific areas. So it will be a valuable resource for you as as a contact for platform, as a platform for contact with all the institutions involved in cultural exchange, cultural heritage, health or tourism. There are groups like these on the Facebooks, so this may facilitate exchange of information between you and your partners. Partner database traditionally will be posted on the program website as well. That would be all on my part. We are open for contact, joint technical secretariat. You have the contact details on this slide. So we still have 15 minutes for Q&A session. Thank you very much for your attention. And why don't you have some questions or comments now?
Dzień dobry, Dariusz Munaczyk, Mazowiecki Szpital Wojewódzki Siedlce.
Hello, Dariusz Kowalski.
Do tych celi.
Provincial Hospital in Siedlce.
Tym celem
Speaking about specific objectives, you stressed particularly access to healthcare and
opieki jak gdyby pozainstytucjonalnej.
Support for, say, non-institutional help or assistance. We are now
Poszczególnych
closing negotiations of regional programs with the European Commission,
już docelowo tylko
and the target is outpatient clinic. This is the first level of support.
w tym programie, bo szpitale zostaną
Don't you think we are doubling this support here? Because I'm afraid hospitals will be deprived of the opportunity to apply for funds under the program, because these seem to be mutually exclusive. So maybe if you're at the point of refining the terms of the project, maybe
przychylnie, bo
you should
one
pay more attention to projects involving the purchase of equipment for hospital wards, because these might be ignored in regional programs. Well, these objectives here are not that we have just come up with. They are carefully defined in two European regulations.
Nasz miał wybrać szereg, znaczy mógł wybrać
And a program like ours was given simply an opportunity to choose several objectives to complete.
opieki zdrowotnej.
So this access to
doping.
basic healthcare and departure from institutional to non-institutional care. This is taken from the regulation and filled with specific content of specific activities that are listed here. So this is, in a sense, what we come up with within the program. So you can see we do not focus particularly on the basic healthcare. We have specialist medicine, we have infrastructure, and different investments here. And just rest assured, we are not following that way, not that direction. With large infrastructure projects, we also have 3 that deal with health, and they are actually implemented by hospitals. So these are big specialist medicine projects. So specifically,
Nie widzę tutaj zagrożenia.
I don't see any threat that hospitals will not be able to apply to our program. They are already there, as a matter of fact.
Czy przechodzimy?
Any other questions, or are we taking a coffee break?
Przepraszam, że jeszcze raz Tadeusz Grabowski, Roztoczański Park Narodowy. Nie
Again, Tadeusz Grabowski, Roztocze National Park.
jest czysto techniczne.
I have a technical question. You say biodiversity. Does it also cover geodiversity, or is it only live nature? Because there are different definitions.
Kluczowe dla mnie pytanie.
That's a key question for me.
Precyzowane, więc co nie jest wykluczone.
Well, this is not precise. If this is not defined, we assume this should be available.
W ogólności zapisaliśmy to w programie, więc myślę,
So you can see this wording is relatively general. So we do not exclude anything. So animate nature is not only there.
Stacja Pogotowia Ratunkowego w Przemyślu. Ja mam pytanie o właśnie ratownictwo.
Rescue services, medical rescue services station in Przemyśl. I have a question concerning some cross-border cooperation with the Ukrainian partners. Are we in a position to apply, and is there a chance for us to cooperate under the program? Well, indeed, tomorrow we are submitting the final shape of the program to the European Commission. So
i efektywności personelu medycznego i ratowniczego. To było
I believe medical rescue is also here. This is to increase effectiveness, and it's not only about soft activities like training or meetings or exchange of experience. We also expect to raise effectiveness, meaning infrastructure, equipment will also be funded.
kwalifikacji, także.
Of course, it goes with improvement of skills, of qualification. So I believe this is more or less the same scope as with the previous programming period.
Miało to jakieś różne perypetie w trakcie.
So, indeed, when the program was designed, there were question marks. Now it's fairly precise, and we can see the scope is relatively broad. So medical rescue services, other services are also covered.
Україна. В мене питання.
Muszę zaczekać, założę może słuchawki.
В мене питання щодо системи фінансування у
I have a question concerning
27. В попередній програмі
the system of funding in the coming perspective. In the previous perspective,
платіж.
it was 30, 50, and the rest, 30 being advance payment. Now you say it is going to be
Фінансування чи залишити
revisited. And so the system, what about advance payments? Are we going to keep it? And what does it look like? I mean, the funding on the project in precise terms.
Raportów, natomiast zaliczkowanie jest tutaj
Well, advance payments are, of course, here
specyfika
I showed you this slide before. We know what difficulties project partners face and beneficiaries face. Advance payments will remain, but
intencją przynajmniej
originally the intention here is
rządzącej
of the managing authority of our secretariat is to encourage your beneficiaries to spend funds as quickly as possible. So if you are in a regular project, because micro projects will follow a different set of rules, there will be one advance payment as it was the case before. So with regular projects, you will be paid, for example, 15 to 20% for a start.
tych 20%.
After you spend 70% of this 20%, you will be able to apply for another advance payment up to 20% until the final report. So
No oczywiście, że pewnie będzie się
things basically don't change. Perhaps there will be a few more reports, which might be troublesome for some, but more frequent reporting will make the system more responsive, more liquid, because some beneficiaries used to report after a year, after they had lost control really of what was going on. Now I think more frequent reporting will make it more transparent and more effective on the part of beneficiaries. I hope this will not only be a burden, another formality to take care of.
Witam, Tomasz Perkowski, gmina Siemiatycze. Chciałem może zapytać dwie takie...
Siemiatycze municipality.
Że będzie powrót do jednoetapowego składania wniosków.
You said this single stage application
Składania, czy to będzie online, czy
will be maintained.
Partnerstw.
So how does it matter in terms of partnership building, and what about preparatory costs for establishing stronger partnerships? Are we going to keep it?
system.
Well, applying online, this is indeed what we are going to continue. This is particularly relevant for Poland-based institutions. And you will perhaps also see it in other sources of funding, because this tool will be there in different programs. This tool will be also translated into Ukrainian. This this is not what we expect. I mean, paper or printed applications will no longer apply. Well, these are certain assumptions. Of course, they need to be approved by the programs committee before the first invitation, but these assumptions are expected to remain as they are. And basically, this preparatory stage is, if I remember well, 5,000 euro. So if you become a beneficiary, these will be reimbursed. Sorry, I didn't hear the question. Well, scans will be accepted as part of the application process. I didn't want to go into too much detail. Such technicalities will have to be decided yet. If you actually respond to invitations, you will be able to take part in different training sessions. You will learn how to fill in forms, how to submit applications. You will have to make friends with the system. If your project is successful, you will implement it also using this system in terms of submitting reports. Both the project leader and partner will access this system, upload different documents.
Bez realizacji programu.
So this will be available and along with you throughout the program. Any more questions at this point?
Na forum partnerów za
Or are we going to continue
jakieś
in the Partners Forum? Of course, everybody's invited, everybody's welcome. See you in about